Are you ready?
This is From the Backline, a soccer podcast from Vancouver, covering the game at home and abroad. Here are your hosts, Mark Daly and Jorge Mendoza.
Hey everybody, welcome back to From the Backline, episode 35,000 or whatever it is. Wednesday.
Oh boy,
it's off to
we're starting. We're starting.
Anyways, it is April 8th, 2026. Mark Daly, Jorge Mendoza here. Jorge, how's it going? It's been a long day for me, my friend. I'm struggling to stay awake, as you can tell. A little bit awkward on the get-go, but we're troopers. We've taken inspiration from the Whitecaps that demonstrate resilience and grit, and we have neither of those things, but we're going to try.
Hey, but the Whitecaps, dude. The Whitecaps, I would argue, resurrected from the death on Easter weekend. Dude, what a match. It was an instant classic, I think. Like, to be honest, I can't remember of a better Cascadia match off the top of my head.
It had everything you wanted in a derby match, right? I mean, ultimately, the results for the Whitecaps was what we wanted, which was a W. So we got that, but there was some very late drama in that game. But I mean, if you look at the statistics on their own, I mean, the Whitecaps deserved to win that one. I mean, if you just look at it, and I've got them here, or I had them here, the Vancouver Whitecaps, where is it? So possession, 61% for the Whitecaps. Total shots for Vancouver, 22, only 9 for the Portland Timbers. So by securing the dub, Vancouver improves to a 5-1-0 record this season. So second in the Western Conference now. Diego Chara played in this game for Portland. I think this was like his 93rd birthday the day before or something.
I think he's older. I think he's older than you and I combined.
And
that's saying something.
But he looks less than half our combined age, which is impressive. I mean, dude has not aged today. I mean, it is a testimony to the longevity of his career, and that's about the nicest thing I'm going to say about a Portland Timber on this podcast. But yeah, it was a cagey match in the first half, and obviously the Whitecaps went into the locker room at the half, down by a goal, despite Ocampo taking what was Portland thinking in that opening 5 minutes with that high press and the way that Takaoka's long ball caught them napping in the back, and what an opportunistic goal was that for Vancouver. I thought at that point the floodgates were open. We were saying that we were expecting the Whitecaps to win by about 12 or 13 goals, right?
At least.
But joking aside, I figured, if this is how this game is going to start for the Whitecaps and they play like this, it could be over by the half. And it wasn't, because Mosquera equalized in the 36th minute on what a volley that was. I mean,
yeah,
that was an outstanding goal for the Timbers, and it's one of those moments in a derby match that just kind of raised the intensity of that game. And then DaCosta, second minute of injury time, added time in the first half, puts the Timbers ahead, literally at the last touch of the ball. And I kind of had sort of like some bad vibes, some bad feelings that maybe at this point it's going to go sideways, because Portland, it was a cagey first half, and I didn't think that, and I'm not out of line in saying this, they just based on the run of play, that shouldn't have been Portland going into the locker room at the half in the lead of this match. Agree or disagree?
Well, yeah, a couple things to unpack there. So number one, you talk about the high press, and last week we talked about San Jose's tactics, which included a high press, and we sort of wonder whether or not that was going to be the blueprint into going forward, that the teams playing Vancouver were going to try to inflict on the Whites a high press that would make it difficult for them to start playing from the back, and we saw that with Portland. Obviously, the way in which Takaoka put that assist, it was an incredible ball. Like we talked a couple of weeks ago, we talked about Pedro Morales and him doing things that I have not seen any other Whitecaps player do. That ball by Takaoka to Ocampo's first goal was a thing of beauty. It was something that Pedro Morales thing. Like, he was, especially because he hit it like first touch, La Borda, so like sent the ball back, and he just hit it exactly with the right height, because he wasn't too far up, too high. So the defenders were able to defend that ball. He was just above everybody to clear the lines, with the right timing, with the right spacing. And obviously, kudos to Ocampo, who remained calm and was able to put that ball away. And yeah, like you mentioned, like, it really felt like it was going to be like another picnic, like they had a few weeks before against Portland themselves. But Mark, you talked about the goals by Portland, and first of all, Mosquera's goal has to be the best goal of his career. That was an absolutely incredible volley.
Yeah.
And nothing to be done there. And then Da Costa puts the Portland Timbers ahead with another beautiful goal. Again, it was a great link-up play, and just like the chip that he puts in against the Takaokas as he was trying to close up the angle. By the way, doesn't Da Costa makes you think that he's a bit of a knockoff version of Ousmane Dembele, just the way that he looks?
Yes, fair.
So, but yeah, it's like, I think that the first half was going back and forth, and then Portland was kind of like pushing towards the end of the first half, but then everything seemed to be lost, and then it wasn't.
Well, it wasn't, but wow, it really didn't feel like perhaps that was going to go the Whitecaps' way afterwards, right? I mean, it didn't sort itself out until very, very late in the match, right? I mean, so we were already in the first minute of added time when Thomas Müller equalizes for Vancouver from the spot on what was a pretty obvious handball. When your arm's almost fully extended, I mean, there wasn't too much to review there. But I mean, the big moment that really didn't materialize was the introduction of Sebastian Berhalter in the 67th minute. Sorry, no, he wasn't. I'm thinking of the wrong game. I will. It was the moments like late in the match. We're already, in deep into stoppage time. Berhalter makes a crunching tackle when Portland was pushing a little bit, and just after we had that late equalizer from Müller to draw the Whitecaps level, I was just kind of thinking, oh my goodness, here we go. We're going to get a point out of this one. Whitecaps are going to rescue the day, and a point after all that. I think we all would have been maybe not happy, but definitely not disappointed. It would have been something, but I mean, it just felt that there was something in that moment that Berhalter prevented. And I watched that goal so many times afterwards. I mean, the Whitecaps take the ball back up the pitch, and Berhalter, I mean, he had been really working hard, because I didn't really notice until afterwards. I just kind of focused on him. I mean, he didn't really go towards the Portland goal with any sense of, urgency. I mean, it wasn't like he was sprinting flat out. I mean, you could tell he was tired and sort of pacing himself. But I mean, when the ball came to him and he connected with it, that was it. That was one of those huge moments. And then all of a sudden, they flipped the script on Portland literally with the last touch of the ball. They take the lead going into the half, and then in the dying moments of the match itself, it's Sebastian Berhalter that wins it for the Whitecaps. And I felt a sense of relief, obviously, joy, obviously, beating a rival like the Portland Timbers, because I was starting to get a little bit kind of like worried at that point that maybe there's going to be this hangover effect from the San Jose Earthquakes match from the previous week. And I wouldn't say that we're completely out of that danger, but I feel that, going into the match against New York this weekend, that there's a little bit less pressure on them than there was if they'd lost, the game against Portland and San Jose. Is this like what they called? I guess that would have been the rebound game. Would this be the rubber band match or whatever? I know there's some of these sort of silly like sports metaphors and terms and things like that, but they've had some challenges, and we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, just about the grit and the resiliency, which we kind of like we were trying to try to use and justify for ourselves, which obviously I failed in doing so. But the Whitecaps, again, they're missing some very important players. We're going to talk about Priso in a few moments here, because he's gone for the next 8 to 10 weeks with the injury that he picked up playing for the national team last week. So again, we see this kind of like juggling and mixing and matching and putting players in spots on the pitch you don't really expect them to see. But at the end of the day, the Whitecaps, they get the results, and I hope from that again they use this a moment as a rally point to kind of reset and refocus after a bit of a wobbly moment against Portland and the disappointment from the week earlier against the San Jose Earthquakes.
Yeah, and you mentioned the grit that we discussed a couple of weeks ago, and I think that the last 5 minutes of the game show that quality that this team has that perhaps in years past they didn't, in two ways. First of all, obviously they get the call at the 90th minute to tie the game. Thomas Müller steps in, buries the ball. And I think that in years past, even you mentioned it, as a fan, we would have been, okay, they rescued the point. We're happy with that. But even the way in which Müller celebrated the goal, which it was a minimal celebration, he immediately asked someone to get the ball and get going again, because they were trying to go for the win. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that shows that kind of leadership, and that shows that kind of mentality that Müller has brought in a very palpable way. Like tying at home in against a rival is not, even if it's at the last minute to save a point, is not good enough. Like they have to go and try to win it. And obviously they did. Right. And the other way in which they showed the grit that you mentioned, that we talked about before, is that, just like you said, like that crunching tackle by Sebastian Berhalter at the 94th minute. If you look at the play, obviously Berhalter is sprinting to come back. Müller, 36-year-old Müller, is sprinting back to come and defend the ball. They get the ball back, and they all push again. And obviously they get the goal, which brings them the win. So I think that those are like the kind of changes that this team has gone, that has really put them above, has helped them make the next step that perhaps in years past they hadn't had. So I think that it was a deserved win. Obviously, we're happy and talking about like an instant classic of a game, because it won the Whitecaps game. I'm sure that we would have been on Portland's side. This is a game that we want to forget quickly. So yeah, it was a very enjoyable match on Saturday night. But before we move on. I
do want to talk about Thomas Müller, because you made a very, very good point there. And, the leadership that he shows, a minimal celebration. Yes, the match is tied. We're deep into it. Like there's literally minutes, if that, to play. Let's get this reset. Let's get this match going, and let's try and win this thing. But that's exactly what Thomas Müller said when he came to Vancouver, was that there was, I wouldn't say maybe there was a lack of a winning culture, but that was something he felt that was missing. And if you're the other 10 players on the pitch for the Whitecaps that isn't Thomas Müller, and you see Thomas Müller, who's literally won everything there is to win in football, scoring a goal and, demonstrating that leadership like who are you to not get on board with that? And again, I think it's a really good indication of how this is a group of players that are not only playing for the badge, but they're playing for each other. And it's just it it's you can tell that they get it. And there is so much to be said about Thomas Müller that, he's clearly not here just to collect a paycheck and just kind of like run out the garbage time in his career, because at 36 years old, he's still in fantastic shape. He's still a fantastic player. He's still a fantastic leader. And you can tell that what he's doing for the Vancouver Whitecaps means something to him. Like when I see him out there on the pitch, I can tell that that's a player that's invested. And that hasn't always been the case with a lot of these big name DP signings in the history of MLS. I mean, there's been other guys that have just shown up and kind of gone through the motions. And Thomas Müller is not one of those guys. And you can tell that, ego isn't part of his thing, because he could walk around like the biggest, most arrogant SOB out there just based on his resume and his reputation and what he's done. But he doesn't. You can tell that he's just one of the guys. He doesn't like hold himself above anybody else on that team and in that squad. And I respect that. And I think everybody in that team, in that locker room, inside that stadium and in the fan base respect that, because it's interesting how signings can make or break a team. And obviously signing a big name player like Thomas Müller is a big deal. But I mean, the way that he's added to this team with all these off the ball kind of things really, really matters. And it's exciting because it's Thomas Müller. And look what he's done. And that's now becoming, with every kick of the ball, every match, regardless win or lose, that becomes a part of the culture, the mentality, the psychology of the Vancouver Whitecaps. And it's I don't know. I think it's cool. I like stuff like that, and it's fun to see because it's a very, very positive moment in the development and the maturing process of this club.
He's reshaping the culture of this club, and I think that is one of the biggest legacies, that once he stops playing for the Vancouver Whitecaps, whenever that is, I think that's sort of what we're going to remember from Thomas Müller, beyond the impact on the pitch, which is also apparent and obvious, but I think that there's a lot more that is going to last after he stops being an active player for this club. And I just want to say, Mark, that we have been friends for almost a decade and a half, and you have never spoken about me with the same level of like love as you already did for a guy that has just been here for a few months. But it's fine, don't it's fine. I'm not.
But it's just assumed everybody knows that my love and my respect for what you bring to the winning mentality of this podcast. You are clearly the Thomas Müller of this podcasting crew.
That is the nicest thing anyone has ever said about me.
Yeah, and I totally didn't feel like I was pressured to say it after you kind of put me on blast like that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Before we close the chapter on the Portland match on Saturday, there was another topic that I want to cover, which is the debut of Ecuadorian player Bruno Caicedo. And I want to do this because, first of all, in this podcast, we do talk about Bruno. And if you didn't get that reference, it's because you don't have small children, and it shows. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I mean, the first Bruno I thought of was Bruno Mars, then I thought of Bruno Fernandes, and then...
You don't know, we don't talk about Bruno, no. We don't talk about Bruno. No. It's from Disney's Encanto.
No.
Your kids are too old, man. That's the problem.
I think my kids,
that's the problem. All our listeners with small children know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway, let's talk about Bruno Caicedo. He came on, and dude, the man, there's quick, And then there's Bruno Caicedo.
Mm-hmm.
He is fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was burning that left wing like no one's business. Now, it was very impressive. It was very exciting. I have to say, I would like to see a little bit more of end product, whether it's like on the crosses or the shots. He has the speed and he has the ability to go down the line, but hopefully we start to see a little bit more like better service at the end of it, a better touches at the end of it. But very exciting stuff, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And considering he got maybe about 20 minutes at the end of the match. But like you say, I mean, the guy is ridiculously quick, a very big physical presence out there, and really added something to the Whitecaps in that late in that second half in that match. Yeah, I mean, obviously we want to see more of an end product to it, to his game, but I mean, all in all, the 20 minutes that he got at the end of the match, I think was a real nice. Do we want to call it a teaser? I think it's fair to say it's a teaser, right? Because not really, it's not a full match. It's his debut. Fortunately, he gets a win on his debut for the Vancouver Whitecaps, but very exciting player. Looking forward to seeing him out there more often for Vancouver coming up.
We saw a flash, a glimpse.
A glimpse, yeah. Well, actually, a flash is a good word to use for Caicedo, because he's gone in a flash. If you're not watching, because you just made the reference, he's very fast.
I'm glad that you explained the reference that I made, that I'm sure everybody who was listening got the first time around.
Yeah.
Okay. Earlier in the show, you were talking about Ralph Priso, who unfortunately was injured while on international duty, and it's been reported that it's going to be between 8 to 10 weeks before he's able to come back from a full recovery from a left hamstring strain that he suffered on the first half of Canada's match against Tunisia on March 31st. And obviously a bummer for both Priso and the Whitecaps. But also, I think that it is pretty clear that it obviously rules him out from any chances that he might have had of going to the World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess it begs the question: do you think he was going to be on that list at the end of the day?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think he was definitely in the conversation. Whether or not he would have made it, I still think there's a little bit of time left. I mean, World Cup doesn't start for a couple of months, and I still think there's a bit of a window before they decide on that final squad that they're going to take to the tournaments. And I don't know. I can kind of see a situation where he could or could not, or may not have made that World Cup squad for the Canadian men's national team. And I mean, now it doesn't really matter, because he's hurt, and 8 to 10 weeks. It's got to rule him out, because I mean, in 2.5 months from now, we're going to be in the
World Cup will be on.
Yeah, exactly. It'll have already started at that point. So it's unfortunate. And
I think it's an interesting story for a couple of reasons. I think that obviously Ralph Priso made his international debut just a few days before in the match against Iceland on March 28th. So he was getting his very first looks with this team. Like, having said that, if you are Jesse Marsh, I mean, Ralph Priso has had an incredible run with the Whitecaps since last year, right? And if you're looking at players, that there's a 26 roster that you can take, Priso has had some very good matches as a central back, which is technically not his strongest position. He's usually a midfielder. So if you're taking a player to the World Cup, I think that he had a good shot of making it that final list, because he was getting into a really good rhythm at a high level in a team that is playing very well and is at the top of the standings, which is always helps, I think. And when you're sort of like debating options there, I think that it's never a bad idea to bring a player who can deliver good performances at several different positions, and I think Priso is something that he could have brought to this team. Unfortunately for him, I don't think he's going to be there. But on the plus side, he's 23. He's making his international debut, and I think that he'll definitely be. He's on a path that should get him into the international game and representing Canada for years to come, I think.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that it would have to happen at the one World Cup that's going to be here on home soil. So it's just unfortunate. But like you say, I mean, he's only 23. He's got a lot of runway left in his career. But this one, it stings a little bit. I mean, you got to be honest about it. I mean, regardless if the World Cup was on in a couple of months or not, you know, he's going to be missing a significant amount of time for the Whitecaps between now and the break for the World Cup. At least, you know, you can make the argument that, okay, he's going to have adequate time to heal the injury and come back, you know, in full health. But on the flip side, he's going to miss all that time for club and country, and that's just disappointing. And you know, it is also kind of like frustrating to you know, like release a player like that for, you know, for international duty and to have them get hurt. But you know, as much as you kind of sit there want to like pull your hair and scream and shake your fists at the sky, and old man screams at cloud syndrome, just like, you know, Grandpa Simpson, you know, football's football, and it's a physical sport, and you know, unfortunately players get hurt. It's just the timing of this one really sucks, and it really does sting for all those different reasons. And hopefully he comes back sooner. But like any other injury, you don't want to rush it and come back too soon. So I guess, you know, just go ahead.
The other question that it opens is like, what are the Whitecaps going to do in the back line, right? Because
well, that's exactly where I was going to go with that.
Yeah, like Priso playing there is because they already had a patched up backline to begin with. You know, he had been playing with Blackmon, and he had been playing with Laborda there. So does that mean that now we're going to, like, the starting center backs for the foreseeable future until Veselinovic comes back? It's going to be, I guess, Laborda and Blackmon, which Laborda being a fullback first, which he hasn't. I think he hasn't necessarily put a foot in the wrong place as a center back, but I think that there's a little bit of a concern, that position for the Whitecaps in the next couple months, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously not ideal when you're playing players outside of their natural positions where they're best suited on the pitch. But I mean, if there's a case for any player succeeding in a position that was not one that they previously thought was in their arsenal, in their, you know, their toolkit, it's Ralph Priso, right? Because like you say, I mean, he was more of a midfielder, and it's just, you know, he was slid into that position and excelled at it. I mean, everybody's going to react differently, but again, you know, for the third time, we're going to reference the grit and the resiliency of this team. And you know, a couple of years ago, 10 years ago, obviously, you know, this is a completely different conversation. It's just like, well, you know, we're going to, you know, pray that the Whitecaps can hang on by the skin of their teeth and hope that, you know, it doesn't fall apart, you know, this week or next week or the week after or whatever it is. And again, for the first time in the history or the MLS history of the Vancouver Whitecaps, as a fan, I feel less uncomfortable and nervous than at any point in, you know, the major league history of the club than right now, because, you know, it's funny, right? Because when you see all the challenges that they have and all the injuries that they've had that have, you know, forced Sorensen to make adjustments and kind of move people around and, you know, come up with these, you know, basic Scotch tape and rubber band and staple and Post-it notes, temporary solutions just to keep, you know, the team moving forward, is that despite these challenges, you know, they've haven't been too adversely affected by them, right? I mean, and that's when it becomes exciting, when you look at the players that are still injured and are not playing right now, and you look at what the team's doing, and the fact that a month and a half into the season, they're second in the Western Conference, just a point behind LA, and I think they're like the goal difference, I think, is only it's pretty close as well. I mean, statistically, they're right up at the top of the league and the top of the conference, with a team that is still very much a patchwork situation. And I think that as fans, that's exciting, that when you look at, like, number one, adding Priso back in his side, and Ryan Gauld and all these other players, it's like, if this is what this team is doing right now, like, what are they going to be capable of once Jesper Sorensen has a fully healthy squad at his disposal? And I think that becomes a really attractive, a really tantalizing proposition for fans. And it's just like, well, hopefully by the time all these players come back, hopefully luck rides with the Whitecaps for a little while, that the injury bug doesn't come and get somebody else, because that's what it always feels like, right? Is that when once somebody comes back from injury, somebody else goes down, and it's both frustrating and tantalizing at the same time. Anyways, that's just me, but I don't think I'm the only person out there that kind of feels that way. Usually it is. Usually it's just a me thing, but I think this time there might actually be one other person that may feel similar to me.
You do have some weird views in different range of topics, which we'll cover at some point, but not tonight.
On an off-topic show.
Once the season is over and we're starving for content, we're into, like,
that's right.
We're kinks that will Mark Daly. So what's next? We have another game out of the 27 that they're going to play at home on a row, and the New York Red Bull is coming into town. And the New York Red Bull, that is currently sits 7th in the Eastern Conference. They have a record of 3 wins, 1 draw, and 2 losses. Have scored 9 goals and received 13. And on paper, should be a winnable match, but I just jinxed it. So sorry.
Yeah, I know that's the thing, right? Is it gets like a little bit. You get all ready and you get excited about a match like that, and then you don't want to jinx them. But it's interesting, right? Because when you look at the Whitecaps schedule, you got New York coming in, then Sporting Kansas City and Colorado. I mean, there's this prolonged run of matches at home before the Whitecaps get kicked out of BC Place, and we'll see them again about like 19 months from now. So
before the 2030 World Cup, I think.
it certainly seems that way. But yeah, I mean,
we go back to what we were saying before, right? Like, with this kind of a schedule that is so unbalanced because of the World Cup, they have these long homestand. They have to capitalize and try to get as many points out of these games at home as they possibly can, so they are not struggling in late September, to try to improve their position at the table, or make the playoffs or anything like that. These are like these matches count the same 3 points as those ones at the end. So, like, if you start building a good base now, that you make a good sort of base for you to go and try to not be as pressured come the match day 30, 31 and stuff like that. So, like you mentioned, the schedule coming up with again, New York coming in, and then Sporting Kansas City. Those are matches. I mean, Sporting Kansas City is dead last in the Western Conference. Like, those are matches that, with the expectation that this team has created and the need that they have to get results, like, they need to get full points.
Well, that's it, right? Because as you rightly mentioned, I mean, like the MLS season is a grind. I mean, regardless playoffs or not, I mean, this regular season goes till the third week of October, and when they close it out at home against St. Louis City SC, so there's a lot that can happen between now and then. But I totally agree that you've got this like run of home matches before you're going to have to go on the road for quite a few of them, what with everything that's happening in and around Vancouver with the World Cup. But it's I don't feel 100% confidence that they've got kind of like these the early season wobblies out of their season just yet, right? Like the the loss a couple of weeks ago against San Jose was unfortunate, and it's not the end of the world, but I felt like there was a bit of that persisted into the Portland match in part. But in years gone by, that might have been a situation that when they went down that second goal to Portland and on Saturday night, that would have been it. But credit to them for having that scrappy nature to persist and fight for a point and then the extra 2 points to get the win. But now I need to see a little bit of stability, and that's where I think it's a bit tricky because the last two games, like at home, I mean, obviously the one in Portland worked out, the one against San Jose didn't, but then all the injury issues that the side has. I mean, there's a couple little things there that are kind of lingering in the background that could very easily work against them. But I mean, the upcoming game against New York City FC this week, then Sporting Kansas City and Colorado Rapids, which takes us to the end of the month and closes out like an entire month at home at BC Place before they head down to play the LA Galaxy at the beginning of May, is I think a very crucial part to this opening part of the of the season. So. Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily
You
make or break, but it's important.
you woman of little faith. You, I'll say they're gonna take 9 points out of the next 3 matches. Why not?
Well, why
Dream
not, right?
big, Mark Daly. Dream big.
Well, I think that's an entirely fair, like, a bold prediction to make because, they are up there. They're one of the top teams in the league, in the conference. And if there's, and when I say I got concerns about a couple of those little things, out of like a scale of like 1 to 10, my concern is, with the injuries and just kind of like the psychological. I mean, I'm thinking this maybe a 3.5 or a 4 out of 10. I'm not like, let's dial 9-1 and hit the other one when things go sideways and we need like to call for reinforcements or whatever. I think the team is fundamentally in a very good position, and I think that the opportunity to take those extra 9 points on the table in these next 3 upcoming matches is totally there. You say that's a bold prediction. It's bold, but I think it's realistic. I wouldn't say that Jorge, I will say you're completely crazy, but that's because I've known you for like
Not because of this.
no, I mean for other reasons. But
Yeah.
I do think I do agree with you that I think that is a reasonable expectation. And but I mean, are we disappointed if out of these games against New York, Sporting Kansas City, and Colorado, they come out of there with, say, 2 wins in a draw or 2 wins and a loss or anything less? Like out of these 3 matches, then, like, where would you kind of like cross the line and say, okay, that
Uh,
was a missed opportunity?
I think out of the next 3 matches, I will be disappointed in they don't come out with 7 points.
That's fair. That's fair. So that we're saying 2 wins and a draw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anything less than that, it has to be seen as like, They should have
opportunity missed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
I think so.
And I think that as fans, that's a reasonable expectation to have at this point in time, because I mean, they've clearly set higher expectations for themselves. And yes, they do have a couple of things that are kind of working against them, but they still have like the spine of this team, like the big important players that are there. And I mean, if we can ever get Ryan Gold back into the side and producing, and we can bring some of these players back from injury, that's in, like we were talking about just 10 minutes ago, that is an exciting prospect. But I would agree if they dropped more than a couple of points out of that, and the 9 that are on offer before the LA Galaxy match at the beginning of next month, that would be a disappointing, because I think this is a very winnable stretch of games, especially at home.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, before we close this show, we got to talk about Vancouver FC, because there's more than one soccer team in this town, and Vancouver FC has kicked off their Canadian Premier League campaign with an unfortunate loss against the Halifax Wanderers, who came in and basically stole 3 points with a wonder kick of a goal kick. And interestingly enough, the Halifax Wanderers being coached by someone that, as Vancouver fans, we know very, very well, who is Vanni Sartini, who came back to town and took the whole 3 points, much like he did when he was the Vancouver Whitecaps coach a couple of years back. And yeah, I mean, I think that overall, maybe a little bit of a unfair result, but that's how it goes. And now Vancouver FC has to start putting up some points on the board, because they come back on to Langley this Sunday.
Yeah, to play Forge. So, yeah, again, a season isn't made or lost on the opening weekend of the year, but it is disappointing that it didn't quite work out. And yeah, Vianney Sartini, like it sounds like a blast from the past, and it seems a little bit kind of strange to see him sort of pop up again in Vancouver, but for a different club at a different venue in a different
league.
Yeah, but that is kind of cool that, that you do have the 2 tiers of the 2 different leagues, in that we have local clubs playing in with MLS and the Canadian Premier League, kind of like playing in parallel to one another. So yeah, long season ahead. Again, this one is going to go for a number of months before it's all finally said and done in, towards the end of October. I mean, they Vancouver FC, they close out their season many months from now against Cavalry FC in, let's see what is, looking at the schedule, on October 25th. So lots of time to get this turned around and put some points on the board. So
yeah. And Vanni Sartini, a huge character in itself.
Oh yeah, right.
Great guy. I had the opportunity to interview him a couple of times and just see him at BC Place as I was working in the TV truck and stuff. And he would come in early and he would be singing at the top of his lungs, like different songs, and sometimes opera, sometimes like Latin music. And we had the opportunity to chat with both coaches during the week ahead of a match with MLS, and I had opportunity to be on calls with almost every coach in the league, and it's no one was more open about everything than Vanni Sartini. He was open about his tactics. He was open about the strategy that he was going to employ in the game. He was open about his starting 11. And in my conversations with him, I think that it was clear to me that the man wants to have fun, number one, but two, he wants to improve the sport from wherever he is. Right. So in one of the conversations that I had with him, I actually interviewed him for another podcast in Spanish. I asked him, I was like, why are you so open with all your tactics and all your, and he said, I think that it is our job as coaches to give you as media all the possible tools that you can have so you can explain the sport to the people watching or the people listening at home. And that will help people understand football better. They will help them enjoy football better. So why wouldn't I? There's nothing new under the sun when it comes to football. So an incredible person. So and I think that it's fair to say that many of the blocks that we talked about, the building blocks that have brought this team to the success that it's enjoying now, were laid out by Vanni Sartini.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Years, so. Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with you. It's funny as you were just kind of like recalling some of those interactions that you had with Sartini over the last several years. I was thinking I'm struggling to remember what year this is, but do you remember when it was one of the times that LA Galaxy came to Vancouver when Bruce Arena was the coach? And I remember we went into the media room afterwards and there was a question and I can't remember who asked it. And, was asking Bruce about either, player selection or tactics or strategies or formation or whatever it was. And I just remember Bruce, he was just kind of like, is that really what you think? Okay, whatever. And he kind of like went on to the next question or the next reporter. I was just thinking there, you arrogant SOB.
Yeah.
Like regardless of your history and your accomplishments in soccer, that just really rubbed me the wrong way. So I mean, when you get a different personality like Vanni Sartini, it's refreshing because compared to like that moment I was just talking about with like Bruce Arena, I mean, it's polar opposites, right? It's black and white, it's north and south, and I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just when you have like a different quirky kind of personality like Sartini, and folks like that kind of resonate with me a little bit more. Like I don't like the aloof, kind of arrogant, standoffish, dismissive nature, and especially so the way, yeah. I mean, who does, right? But yeah. Anyways, do you sing opera at work? You look like the type, but maybe not.
He was great.
Yeah,
I can tell you that much.
He could give you some tips.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to dismount?
I could, but I'll decline because I barely got this podcast going. So
this is true. This is true.
Yeah. We need to finish stronger than my feeble attempts to get this thing going. So I will quietly sit down here in the corner, and I'll let you. I'll leave it in your capable hands to close the loop here and send the people home happy.
Well, the bar is low after the beginning, so I should be able to do this. All right, everyone, thank you so much for listening to episode 290 of From the Back Line. Once again, this is a new feed. You're able to subscribe. You would like to leave a review. It will really help us bring this podcast to the levels where we were in the first round that we did. So we appreciate your time, and we're going to talk to you again next week.